Hello there, it is Jo. Welcome to Minerva. Today we're going to do a tutorial on how to sew stripes. I say sew stripes, really you need to know how to cut stripes because the sewing will do itself after you've cut your fabric properly. Today I'm wearing the Cocoa by Tilly and the Buttons. This pattern is often seen using stripes. You will have some stripe matching to do on the sleeve here or on the side seams. But of course, if you're using a really slim stripe like this Minerva Core Range jersey, then you've got enough stretch in the fabric to sort of stretch to your next stripe because your stripes are really close together. You need some techniques once you're working with slightly wider stripes. So today I'm cutting out this t-shirt dress from my New Look pattern. This dress is view A from New Look 6449. It's one of my most used patterns. I've made the dress, the shirt dress, the dress with a collar, the dress without a collar. In fact, I looked for a shirt pattern for ages and ages and ages and then thought, well, I like the fit of the top of the shirt dress, so I just hacked it into a shirt. So I'm making the t-shirt dress. I've already made one in the Minerva Core Range fabric a few years ago, but it got a tiny little hole right in the centre after wearing it for about 4 years, and I needed to replace that item. So this stripy dress is a replacement of my old stripy dress. But my old stripy dress has been fixed and is now used as a night dress. My pattern matching ethos isn't absolute perfection. I think sometimes if you're trying to strive for absolute perfection, then you just procrastinate for so long that you don't actually make anything. So when you're matching stripes, think about the places where people will see your stripes the most. Think about here, right at the front of your sleeve head. Don't worry about matching it under your arm because nobody's looking under your arm. So try and make sure that your sleeves are pattern matched and your side seams. I don't even worry too much about the shoulders. This one happens to work quite nicely because it's such a narrow stripe, but really I'm thinking about the places that people will see the stripes the most. As I've mentioned, this fabric needs a little bit more attention, especially at the cutting stage, so I'm going to show you how I cut out my dress. Take your fabric, this is a stretch jersey with quite a wide stripe, and you're going to keep the jersey on the table, don't let it slip off the side. I've got the fabric wrong side up so I can mark on it with chalk. And I'm going to place the back piece down and I'm going to look for the notch. This notch is the sort of marker for the side seam. Next I'm going to trace out the dress because I'm cutting in a single layer. So now I need to flip the paper pattern piece so that I get one complete front piece as if cutting on the fold. Secure it in the corner just while I get everything back on the table. If you let the fabric drape over the table, it will stretch out, so when you cut it, it will ping back and you'll get a distortion in your stripes. And now again, I'm looking for that side notch and the center fold line. So here's the side notch, and it needs to be halfway between two navy stripes so that it's the same on both sides. Pin the center fold and pin your notch position. Make sure you've got everything lined up so you get the right size pieces. Chalk out the other half of the dress front or back. And cut out your piece. Remove your paper pieces. You can double check that you've got that right by folding your fabric in half. You can walk the stripes up the side, and that way you've got your stripes in exactly the same place on your fabric and everything's on grain. Next, take the front piece, same again, we're on the reverse side and we're looking for that notch. We match that side notch in the same position as the back notch, so the notch is in the right place. Let's have a test. So we're going to look for those two notches which are between the blue stripes and they fit together. You won't get this type of accuracy if you cut your fabric double. You need to cut it in a single layer. That way your stripes will match up. The preparation for cutting the sleeves is to make sure that you know where the notches are on the underarm. So I'm going to mark the notches. This is the back piece. So I've got 2 marks for the back, and that's pointing to where the armhole notch is. I'm just going to clip that as well so I can definitely see where it's landing. I'm going to use that to decide where to put my sleeve piece. The notches should be the same on both sides. When you cut your sleeve piece, again, you're going to cut in a single layer of fabric with the wrong side up. Put on your sleeve piece, and I'm looking for these notches again. So this is the front piece, so the notch is touching the blue. So I need my notch on my sleeve piece to touch the blue. I'm going to pin that in place. Next, I'm going to check out the other notch. So this is on the back piece, so that's touching the red. So my notch is between the blue lines and in the middle of the red stripe. You can see the hem is running well along the lower stripe. So I'll get a nice hem finish on my sleeve, and that means all the grain line is straight. Cut one of these out. So that's only one sleeve, of course. Mark your notches because you'll need those to match back up with your stripes. Okay, to cut the second sleeve, don't cut one the same. You need to flip the pattern over to mimic cutting on the fold. It's quite easy to make that mistake. Find the notches again and repeat cutting out your second sleeve. Check you're not cutting out two the same. Make sure you're doing 2 opposite ones. You can also check your stripes. To set the sleeve in, all the work's been done for you because you've got notches to follow. So you match up the notches and then match up the stripes. They won't match all the way, so just match as many as you can without stretching the sleeve out. Put 2 pins per stripe, one on the stripe in and stripe out, and then sew around the head. Okay, so you get quite a pleasing line around the underarm. Obviously at the top you're not going to get a match. You're not going to get straight bits to go onto a curved shape, but you're getting a good illusion of stripes going across your top. Same on the back, getting a pleasing line. Let's see how I pin the fabric so that the stripes stayed matched up. Ordinarily you would be joining a top like this at the underarm seam, but really that's not so critical at this point. What you want to look out for is to set your stripes near your underarm correctly so that you get your stripes running down your side seam. It doesn't matter if your underarm seam is slightly out. What would matter is if you match the underarm seam but not the side. Continue to pin, or you could try using a basting tape. This is a quilter's basting tape. It's a double-sided tape that dissolves in the washing machine, so you can stick it along the seam, peel back the backing, and it's exactly like using double-sided sticky tape, and then match up your stripes. This is good because pins pin near the raw edge, but this pin's nearer to your seam allowance. If you mismatch, just peel back and set it again. From the right side, you will get a seamless stripe. I'm going to use this down the side seam. To make sure that my hemlines match, and I can sew this at 1.5. Let's take a look inside. It's really good. It's a fantastic technique. I mean, you can hardly see where the join is, it's there. And that's the basting tape. The most noticeable place you'll see your stripe is on your hem, so on your sleeve hems, cuff hems, or your waist hem or your length hem. So on this cocoa, I knew that on the cuff, I would see that all the time and people would see it as I dealt with them. So I made sure that the stripes were well matched on the cuff, and that I tried to keep running that black line around the bottom of my cuffs. If you've got something short sleeve, then you want to sort of make sure that you've got the same colour stripe as your last stripe on each sleeve, so you get a balanced look. Sometimes you can sort of fudge it a little bit, because even if your length isn't measurement accurate correct, if you have the colour stripe correct or grading staying on the stripe, then you will have an optical illusion that you've still got the same length on each side, even if I measured it and it wasn't quite. So on this t-shirt, I wanted to make sure that this navy hem was the same on both sides. When I turned up my hem allowance, if I actually measured the hem allowance, it wasn't exactly the same all the way around, but I wanted to make sure that my hems were matching. Also, for hems, you might need to change your bobbin thread and have it a different colour to your top thread. I wanted to make sure on my sleeve heads that my navy thread ran in my navy stripe, but on my hem, I wanted to make sure that the red stripe ran with red thread. So that all of those things help your stripes to become the optical illusion that you want it to be. Hems that don't look good in stripes tend to have a stripe running out into a different coloured stripe, or a thread running from one colour into the other colour, and then it becomes more noticeable. So here are my hems. I've turned them up. I've done quite a deep hem because I don't know if I'm going to have them rolled up or not, but I've got that navy stripe on the bottom all the way around the hem, and I've made sure that I've got it the same on the other one with the navy on both. Here's the hem. So I've got a narrow seam allowance here, a wider one here than there, but I haven't measured the hem allowance. I measured to the stripe. I used my red thread to make sure that it wasn't seen or running into either different colour stripe. If you want to use your stripe in an opposite direction, then that's fine, that works stylistically really well, but you need to make sure if it's a stretch fabric, then you've got enough stretch on the other grain. So this fabric is cut on the straight grain so that the dress hangs correctly, and I wanted to put the stripe going the opposite way, but I needed to make sure that I'd got enough stretch for that to be a neckband, and this fabric has quite an equal stretch in the width and the length, so I was able to turn the stripe. You have to be careful if you've got, say, a Ponte Roma fabric that's striped and you've used it one way and you want to flip it the other way, you might not have the same amount of stretch in the other direction. So just give your fabric a little stretch test before you decide to switch the stripes. To sew the dress, I used a walking foot, and that's really useful for making sure that both of your layers of fabric go through at the same rate under your feed dogs. A walking foot has a feed dog in the foot, and so it acts with the feed dog in your machine, and it takes your fabric through evenly, so both pieces of fabric are being taken through the machine at the same rate, rather than the feed dog's taking your stretch fabric through one rate and your presser foot that's shiny taking it through at another rate. I wasn't intending that to be a sew along, it really is a tutorial on stripes, but I thought seeing the process of putting the dress together was a great way to find out how to sew stripes. If you love stripes as a style choice, then there are some good patterns that you could try out. You could try really playing with stripes on a skirt. So this is Simplicity 2184, so the skirt is cut on the bias and the stripes are coming at diagonal, so you can use that basting tape to make sure that right on the center front of your skirt you've got your stripes matching in the right place. If you really enjoy sewing stripes, then you could try Vogue 1743. It is a superb dress, lots of skill involved here, but a lot of fun to be had playing with the different stripes on different parts of the dress. If you're looking for something really easy, of course, you could go back to New Look 6449. It's great to try your first stripes with a stretch fabric, because if you've got any little discrepancy, you can just stretch it to the next stripe and ease your fabric in. Obviously with a woven fabric, you're going to be much more accurate. I hope all of those tips have helped you today. Do come back for more sewing tutorials, sew-alongs and tips and tricks. We would love to see your makes, especially striped ones, on our website. So make a free account with us, upload your photos and join in with the sewing community. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.